Lee had inherited the bird, not the faith. That was what she told herself when she was honest enough to risk blasphemy in private. The bird was small, wooden, badly made, and older than anyone who still argued about its first owner with confidence. One wing sat wrong. Her grandmother said a road boy had made it. Her uncle said the story changed every time women told it near bread, which proved only that her uncle understood neither women nor bread. Lee kept it near the household lamp, not because she believed all the stories, because it reminded her that a house was never only the people who owned it. That was the part of the faith she had inherited against her will. Rooms had memory. Tables had memory. Bread remembered hands. Her family phrase was older than her patience. The feast did not end. It changed rooms. As a child, Lee had loved the sound of it. As a woman responsible for an actual room, she found it expensive, especially when Paul came to dinner. He arrived dusty, not apostle, not chosen vessel, dusty. He entered her courtyard as if still listening to a road no one else could hear. Behind him came two companions, one with a riding case guarded like a sleeping child. Lee's husband, Nereus, welcomed him too loudly. That was how Lee knew he was nervous. Nereus became grand when afraid. He opened his arms, praised God, named mutual friends, mentioned the honor of the visit, and used the word humble in a sentence shaped by pride. Paul listened with the expression of a man hearing both the words and the furniture beneath them. Then Paul looked past him. At the table, the servants holding back near the wall, the empty corner where late laborers would stand. Lee saw him count the room. She liked him less for that. Then more. Counting was her work. A cloth merchant reclined near the best place. Two brothers who disagreed about teachers sat on opposite sides and pretended it was accidental. A woman who prophesied sat near the back. A freedman stood just inside the doorway. Lee knew the laborers would come late. They always did. Work did not release the poor early for theology. Paul washed. A servant brought water. Paul took the basin from his hands and held it lower so the servant did not have to bend as far. Small thing, rooms are governed by small things before speeches arrive. Lee noticed. So did the servant. Nereus did not. The meal began badly, not openly. Openly badly would have been easier. Bread moved first among those seated closest. Wine followed the shape of status. Men who spoke of one body reached in order of old importance. Servants carried enough to make generosity visible and not enough to make equality true. Paul ate quickly. Lee had expected holiness to chew slower. He took bread, fish, olives, drank watered wine, listened to 3 conversations, answered 1 question, ignored 2 compliments, and stopped mid-bite when the late workers entered. There were 4 of them. 2 men, 1 woman, 1 boy old enough to be useful and young enough to disappear when adults counted. Their tunics carried dye stains and sweat. Their eyes went first to the table, then to the faces, then to the leftovers. Lee's stomach tightened. She had told the kitchen to hold food back. Had they? A servant's face answered before the plates did. Not enough. Paul set his bread down. The room continued for 3 breaths before realizing the dangerous man had gone quiet. Nereus noticed last. "Brother," he said. Paul looked at the late arrivals. "Have they eaten?" Nereus smiled. It was the wrong smile. "They will be served." "With what?" The room became smaller. Lee could feel the bird near the lamp as if bad wood had gained weight. The feast did not end. It changed rooms. Yes, she thought, and in this room it has become accusation. One of the cloth merchant's friends laughed softly, trying to make the question less sharp by making it social. Paul did not look at him. That was wise. Some men should be denied the dignity of being corrected first. Paul looked at Lee, not Nereus. Lee. This annoyed her so much she respected him. "Is there bread?" he asked, truth before teeth. That was another family phrase, newer than the bird, usually used when children lied badly near jars. Lee stood. "There is bread." Nereus turned toward her. She did not look at him. "Bring it," she told the servant. All the room heard that. "Good." All, Lee said. The servant ran. Now the meal was openly bad. "Better." Paul leaned back. "Continue," he said to Nereus. Nereus blinked. "Continue what?" "You're welcome." That was cruel. Lee nearly smiled. Nereus did not. The late workers stood in the doorway trying not to become the lesson. Lee hated the room for making them into one. She went to them herself and led them forward. The woman hesitated. "Mistress Lee." "Mistress Lee." "Lee is shorter and the bread is coming." The boy smiled. The woman did not, but her shoulders lowered. Paul watched. Everything became worse when a holy man watched, Lee thought, or better, often the same. The servant returned with bread, lentils, and the fish Lee had hidden for tomorrow. Nereus saw the fish. Lee saw him see it. Marriage, she thought, was many things. One of them was noticing when a man chose not to object because witnesses had made thrift less attractive. The late workers ate, not comfortably. Comfort would take longer than food. Paul waited until the room had endured itself. Then he spoke of the Lord's meal, not long at first. Long speeches let people admire themselves for listening. He spoke of receiving and passing on, of the night, of bread, cup, body, of discerning the body. He did not say body like an idea. He said it while looking at hungry people, servants against the wall, women whose gifts unsettled men, and Lee, who had inherited a bird and a phrase and now found both watching her. When you come together, Paul said, you reveal what you believe before you explain it. The scribe near him lifted his head. Say that again? Paul frowned. No, not that, too polished. The scribe lowered the pen. Lee liked him more. Paul rubbed his forehead. Right after. After what? After I know how angry I am. That made the room breathe strangely, not laughter exactly, recognition. Paul's anger did not feel like a man's pride injured. It felt like a table being turned without wood moving. Later, after the meal had become repair instead of performance, Paul dictated. Lee had seen letters written before, business agreements, debt notes, family messages shaped to hide as much as reveal. This was different. Ink made argument portable. A sentence became a traveler. Once sealed, it could enter rooms Paul could not, accuse hosts he had never met, comfort widows whose names he would mispronounce, and irritate men who preferred apostles dead or distant. The scribe sat near the lamp, cheap ink, scraped reed. Bread crumbs on the table, watered wine abandoned in cups. The child of one late worker asleep under a bench with one hand open as if still expecting food. Paul dictated in bursts. Sometimes he paced. Sometimes he sat. Sometimes he ate a forgotten olive and continued mid-thought. No, he said once. Read it back. The scribe read. Paul winced. Too gentle. Nereus shifted. Lee did not pity him. Then she did. He had opened his house, badly but opened. He had been humiliated in the room he hoped would honor him. He had not left. That counted for something, though not enough to save him from the letter. Paul continued. He spoke of factions, of the body with many members. Of gifts that made noise without love becoming empty. Of eating in a way that despised the assembly. Of waiting for one another, waiting for one another. Lee looked at the late workers. There it was, not a slogan, a seating arrangement. When the scribe's hand cramped, Paul stopped. He looked at Lee's lamp, then at the wooden bird beside it. What is that? Lee nearly lied. Because the truth felt sentimental, and sentimental things become foolish if spoken near men who make arguments sharp. A family memory, she said. Paul waited, she sighed. They say it came from a man who followed the witnesses after Jerusalem, a thief or courier or liar depending which aunt tells it. His wife kept rooms. He carried bread. They said the feast did not end. It changed rooms. Paul looked at the bird for a long moment, then he looked back at the table. Good, he said, only that. Lee wanted more and was grateful not to receive it. Nereus spoke then, quietly. We failed the feast. Lee looked at him, so did Paul. Nereus swallowed. In my house. No one rescued him from that. Good. Some confessions should be allowed to stand without being decorated. Paul nodded once. Then let the house tell the truth better tomorrow. That was not absolution. It was assignment. Lee understood those. After midnight, when most had gone and the scribe sanded wet ink, Lee gathered the leftover bread first. Not for storage, for sending. The late workers left with food wrapped in cloth. The servants ate before sleeping. The woman who prophesied remained to speak with Paul, and this time no one moved her to the back. Nereus sat near the doorway, ruined enough to improve. Lee took the carved bird from beside the lamp and held it, the bad wing pressed into her palm. Her grandmother had said Dagon carried guilt until it taught his hands what they were for. Lee had thought that beautiful when she was a girl. Now it sounded like work. Better, beautiful things that refuse work become decoration, and decoration feeds no one. Paul's letter would leave soon. Ink would walk. Rooms would hate it and need it. Lee looked at the table. The feast had not ended, but it had entered her